Morning, Internet. Welcome to Wednesday. Hope your week is going well. Today, we wanted to make a little video this morning, a short video, about asking questions. Now, asking questions might seem relatively basic, and you might be wondering why we're making a video about asking questions. This video is sort of just a reflection about certain behaviors that I've seen both in myself and in some of my classmates within the Coding Bootcamp and just within sort of the broader LTC Learning to Code community. And so I wanted to start a discussion around asking questions and see if there's any interest there. So let's get started. So I guess the first thing is sort of just this reflection on some people are really comfortable asking questions and some people aren't, right? Maybe that's self-evident. But what I find really interesting is when you're learning something new, particularly learning to code, sort of the importance and necessity of being willing to ask questions to yourself, sort of as learning tools, sort of the ability to ask questions to others for clarification, the ability to ask questions to an online community like ours or like Stack Overflow, so on and so forth, can be really, really useful in accelerating or deblocking your process of learning to code. So I guess I've been thinking about this a fair amount lately because when I think about LTC learning to code and sort of the different behaviors that I see among others, it can be really interesting to sort of understand or reflect on how some people will need a semi-private or private space in order to engage and ask questions, and other people, like myself, that might sound bad. There are other types of profiles who ask questions in class, and that can have upsides and downsides, I guess, but it's sort of just interesting to think about. Now, there are sort of three or four contexts, I guess, that I sort of like to think about when LTC and learning to code, as well as asking questions. The first context is sort of within the classroom setting. So for us in this program, we have a morning lesson, which generally goes from 9 a.m. to 10:30, 11. And during class, we have the ability to ask questions on the spot. So we're going through our lecture slides or like a live code, a demo or whatever. And if there's something that you don't understand, you have every right to raise your hand, flag the teacher or instructor, and ask for clarification. I've noticed that I would guess like we have a class of 40. There's probably about 10 people who regularly do that. And I think that there can be a lot of value in sort of getting that real-time feedback. However, I admit two things. One, asking a question in front of a group is definitely not for everyone. And the second thing is, since I'm studying in France, I was discussing with a classmate and a friend yesterday sort of the different learning profiles. So it seems that in the US, in the United States, we sort of emphasize discussion and debate and like engagement within classes, with both between peers, so students, and then also between the students and the instructor. Whereas the French learning and scholastic model seems to be a lot more like there's a teacher and there's students, and teacher gives lesson to students, and there's not so much two-way engagement. Having spent a little bit of time in China, it seemed like that might sort of be similar in just that there's like a very respected role for the instructor, and it's sort of a lot more monodirectional. But that's just a hypothesis. So the live class setting can be one. The second is like right after the class ends. I have noticed that some people who very rarely, if never, if that's proper English, never ask questions in class, live during class, will wait until after class is over and then go up to the instructor and ask for clarifying points. Like that can be a good strategy too. third is sort of on the one-on-one buddy system, or the one-on-one buddy or student and TA, or teachers and assistant instructor. This is like when we're doing our problem sets every day, probably from like 11 to 5:30, something like that. You have the ability to work through problems with one other person, so in like pair programming approach. And I've noticed that there are different people who will be super comfortable asking their buddy for clarification or help, but would very rarely like raise their hand in class. I'm not saying one is better than the other, it's just sort of an interesting observation. Also sort of in that context of doing problem sets, I've noticed that a fair number of people are just like really willing to put a ticket into the ticketing system, meaning that like if you have a problem, we like have a website, you go online, you log into that website, and you like write a little description about what problem you're stuck on and where you're stuck and how you're stuck, and a TA will come over and sort of help you think through it. So some people are like very willing to engage with the TAs. What's interesting is some people are willing to engage with TAs but are very dismissive of engaging with their buddies, and that's an interesting behavior. Sort of the fourth group, I guess now I'm thinking of five, so the fourth of five groups is I've noticed the number of people in our cohort will sort of ask both technical, like very specific technical questions, and sort of more broad contextual questions to perhaps they have someone in their life who's already like in the tech world or in a place where they have experience with code. And I've seen people go sort of outside of the classroom setting and ask people in their life for clarification that way. The fifth way, even though initially I said there was four, is sort of like these online communities. Online communities, or think of as like books or written resources. So that could mean like coming to our channel or like our website, not to self-promote too much, but asking a question there. Or I know a lot of people like Udemy, because there's like a pretty active what's like chat, I guess, for question and answers within most of the classrooms if the course is done well. Or Stack Overflow, Code Academy, Free Code Camp. These sort of communities can be really useful if you're stuck on a specific type of problem. And then I guess I would also sort of think about like sometimes I have a question and I just like want to go look at reference material, right? So that's like a self question or a question to myself, and I'll sort of designate the responsibility to myself to like go look that up in a book or a chapter or whatever. So, in summary, we wanted to talk about just the importance and the ability to ask questions, and we sort of wanted to discuss the different sort of settings that I've remarked while in this coding bootcamp. The first being in class, the second being after class, or right after class. The third being one-on-one, whether it be buddy or a student and TA. The fourth being tapping your network or relationships outside of school or formal setting. And then the fifth was sort of, the fifth-ish was online communities and or reference books. We want to know what you think about this video, about this topic. Do you find that asking questions is an important part of learning to code? Maybe that's like a false premise of a question. What do you think about asking questions? Like, where do you get stuck? What kind of questions are you willing to ask versus not willing to ask? Where do you hesitate? Do you have any strategies for increasing your willingness or likelihood to ask questions in any variety of settings? As always, we would also appreciate feedback about the video, the style, the content, the approach, the logistics. I don't know what I mean by logistics, but logistics clearly, and sort of technical execution or quality of the video. You can always connect with us online. You can leave comments or feedback in the bottom of this video, as per the normal way. And we're off to class. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again this evening. Sorry to point. Okay, bye.